Today's conversation is on why it is important to, at times, not do anything to manifest what you desire. Why it is important at times to not do anything to manifest what you desire. I've been referring to this as techniquelessness. Consider this for a moment. When a person does nothing in meditation, there is a neurotransmitter that is released. It's called anandamide. Anandamide. Anandamide, when it's released, it facilitates what I call lateral being, or sometimes people refer to this as lateral thinking. So there is divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking is seeing things from many different perspectives or seeing many different possibilities. As we always say, all things exist now in imagination as possibilities. So, in other words, you can imagine anything. And all of that, we could say, exists now in a potential form which we can choose to actualize into physical form. Now, there's also convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is what we can refer to as well-established solutions. So, for example, I built 3 successful businesses since 2009. And I also created 5 programs. And these 5 programs were built on the foundation of my personal experience, applying everything that we talk about on this channel. In there, I share strategies, techniques, processes, ways of building a business that have worked perfectly for me. I put it into the 5 programs. For example, in the entrepreneurial program, I talk about techniques, strategies, methodologies in relation to innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, and leadership. I even share tools, processes, etc., what I have done to build 3 successful businesses. And also in one of my businesses, consulting with thousands of businesses in the areas of sales, finance, operation, leadership, marketing, innovation. Now, those are what we call well-established solutions that have proven to work physically, included in these programs. What I also encourage in these programs is divergent thinking, going beyond what has been proven physically in equation to work. And I also recommend that one way is not better than another. Every time I discuss anything through the 5 programs. Why? Because I've worked with entrepreneurs, and I've done it myself, who have taken well-established solutions they have read in books, watched videos online, listened to coaches, consultants, and experts talk about, and they have produced results by applying what they shared. I also worked with entrepreneurs who took some of the things that they suggested and combined it with their own style of doing things and produced entrepreneurial success. Then I've also worked with entrepreneurs, and I've done it myself as well. I have done things, and they have done things that, let's say, have never been done before. Not in books, not talked about coaches and consultants, not, as far as I know, available in videos or discussed in videos. Is one way then better than another? Well, consider this. When we're meditating, anandamide is released. Anandamide is named after the Sanskrit word ananda, which means bliss. It is what we refer to as the bliss molecule. So the bliss molecule is released by doing nothing, by sitting there and meditating. This molecule is known to facilitate a reconciliation between the divergent thinking and the convergent thinking. So practically speaking, intuition, the still small voice, provides the solution to the seeming challenge, which is an opportunity, to the seeming problem, which is an opportunity, to anything in life. Why do I say that? Well, consider this as well. As I always say, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason at all. The fact that you exist is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus, everything that you appear to seek for, that you are. You are also infinitely intelligent. Infinitely intelligent. And you can access this intelligence by doing nothing, which we now understand more so that as anandamide is released by doing nothing, there appears to be a reconciliation happening within. Practically speaking, via the still small voice and intuition, divergent thinking and convergent thinking is reconciled, and a person takes that intuitive insight, applies it, and produces success. And it may not make logical sense. It may not be what other people are doing. That's okay. You don't need to look to this world or other people or videos, etc., to tell you how to think for yourself. What I'm talking about here is thinking for yourself, thinking clearly from yourself by doing nothing, receiving within the answers to the questions that you have in life. The greatest teacher in the universe, the still small voice within you, accessing that by doing nothing, providing you the answers to questions, providing you the solutions to seeming challenges, reconciling divergent and convergent thinking within by doing nothing. Now, anandamide is also released in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill, while we're in flow, while we are living the meditation practice. So you can access clarity during the meditation practice. After the meditation practice, you notice clear thinking, you know what to do, what to say, etc., in relation to whatever in your life. Well, guess what? You can also experience it by living your meditation practice in day-to-day life. See, have you noticed that while you're in flow, you naturally know what to do? You naturally know how to relate ideally to people, environment, circumstance, information. Intuition, clarity arises, providing the clear steps that when you take these steps, they produce results. And they might not be based on convergent thinking. They may be divergent ways of doing things. They may be convergent ways of doing things. I personally don't consider one way better than another. All of that reconciles naturally while you're in flow. So a practical example. Back in 2010, while I was building my IT business, I received within an intuitive insight while not doing anything to teach speed reading workshops. Now, that might not make any logical sense. Why would a person teach speed reading workshops when they're building an IT business, providing IT solutions to companies? Why would they teach speed reading? What does that have to do with their business? That sounds so divergent. And let's say it could appear as not necessary or not practical or not helpful. Yet it was an intuitive insight. Through the intuitive step, we can call this practical transformational work in real-world scenarios. anything can be a spiritual catalyst. So for me, public speaking in this way was a spiritual catalyst. Now, connecting the dots looking backwards, we can say, okay, that's how it works. But I didn't know that at the time. Yet I took the step. Now, as I mentioned, you can access clear thinking, reconciliation between divergent thinking, convergent thinking. While you're in flow, anandamide is released. Also, where challenge meets skill. So you can receive the answers within by doing nothing. You can also receive the answers within by doing something, appearing to do something, we could say. I don't consider one way better than another. I access the flow here in meditation, and I access the flow by living the meditation practice in day-to-day life. I don't consider one way better than another. Why would I? That would be dichotomous belief, suggesting doing it this way versus that way. And then if a person is identified with that dichotomous belief, they may force themselves, and that just may result in more confusion. Release the bias. One way is not better than another. What essentially the meditation practice points to, which is also what the spiritual catalyst of public speaking points to, is allowing yourself to be as you are. Unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You can experience it anywhere. Infinitely intelligent, accessing infinite intelligence anywhere. So what I noticed was on the days leading up to the workshops, which I used to do on Friday and Saturday, it would appear that anxiety would build up. So I'd be a little fearful, maybe Monday or Tuesday. And then Friday, it would be what I call full-blown anxiety. And it could be considered, again, as I mentioned earlier, not making any logical sense. As a matter of fact, I asked some people around, and they said, why are you doing that? What's the point of doing that? Yet I knew in my heart it was the thing to do. And so what I did was I transmuted the emotions. By accessing flow, by relaxing into the flow, in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about this in the book Flow. He says you can access the flow in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. I trust you've noticed this. If you're a dancer, maybe you start your performance and then you're in the flow. Maybe it's a little bit challenging in the beginning. That's okay. No shame and condemnation. You access the flow. I run, for example. We experience what is called runner's high at times. Maybe when you start the run, little challenging, for whatever the reason may be, then you're in the flow. The same is to be said when I do sales. The same is to be said in the earlier stages when I do videos. Now, what I do is I turn on the camera and I start talking. In the earlier stages, it wasn't like that. It was very challenging, and that's okay. I realize that challenge is an access point to the flow. It presents an opportunity for me to relax into the flow and access that skill, that infinite intelligence, which manifests as skill, we could say. So what happened was I transmuted the emotions. I didn't suppress, repress the desire to creatively express in the public speaking event, share my speed reading knowledge, as well as do the workshops, which I thought were a lot of fun while I was teaching the workshops and after the workshops, because prior to the workshops, in the earlier stages, I was identified with particular beliefs that from identification to these particular beliefs, I was experiencing the energy in motion as anxiety, seeming to hold me back. Emotions don't hold you back. It is illusory to think that. Emotions are energy in motion. You may release them or you may transmute them. So I transmuted them. How did I transmute them? I continued to take the step in the direction of teaching the workshops and then relating to the experiences ideally by acknowledging that this is a flow access point. That's it. flow access point. And at times, via the still small voice, the greatest teacher in the universe would provide clear insights within. Intuition would share with me exactly what to do. And I would take those steps. Let's say some micro steps, macro steps, etc. I would take the steps. And then I would notice that the energy in motion will get transmuted from anxiety to excitement. And then during the presentation, I would flow. After the presentation, I would feel wonderful, runner's high, we could say. Now, as mentioned, anandamide is released while you're in flow. So what I notice is during the presentations, I would get all kinds of ideas, and I would write them down and apply them, and I would grow my IT business. People would show up to the events and bring me on to help them with their IT projects, because we would teach these workshops in downtown Toronto, and there were business owners or those that worked in companies, and they would refer me to their companies, or they would bring me into their organizations. By teaching these speed reading workshops, I released those beliefs, transmuted that anxiety into excitement, which is now how I feel every time I do events. Isn't that interesting? Where I used to once feel full-blown anxiety prior to teaching the events, I now feel excitement towards doing the events. As a matter of fact, Danielle Lynn and I are doing another event in New York City. I'm excited about it. And when we did the one in Los Angeles leading up to it, I was excited about it. Isn't that interesting? The emotions are transmuted. Person thinks that if they experience anxiety leading up to, let's say, doing the thing that they genuinely desire to do, that's just how it works. Actually, by doing nothing, you receive the step. And then by releasing the need to control, doing nothing that is unnecessary, in the moment, we access the flow. And so, yeah, we're going to do the event. And when I did it last time, I felt excitement leading all the way up to it. I feel genuine excitement now. We're doing it January 11th. If you're interested, I'll link in the description. We're talking about this. We're talking about how you can access the flow by relaxing into the flow during meditation and also during challenging experiences. Who labels them as challenging experiences? The person in mind, identified with particular beliefs that suggest not doing the thing that they genuinely love to do. Is that interesting? So, by not doing anything in meditation, anandamide was released, and then there was a reconciliation. There is a reconciliation between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. One way is not better than another. The answer is it depends. And then a person knows what to do, what to say, etc. The answer is provided in relation to any question that the individual has from the greatest teacher in the universe, the still small voice within, by doing nothing. I trust you notice this. And then I take the step. Now, if I take the step, there may be more illusory thinking arising from beliefs in mind that suggest illusions of separation from being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, or not being infinitely intelligent. That's okay. Mind purification opportunities. Release that overthinking. Feel the emotions being released, they get transmuted. Whatever kind of behaviors, accept yourself the way you are now. And you relax into the flow. And then anandamide is released as well while you're doing the activity, whatever it may be. The one thing, let's say, that the person was afraid of doing before, that intuition suggests to do. And you don't need to look to this world for recommendations of what you should or should not do. You can go within. Because only you can imagine what people say. Only you can imagine what the information seems to suggest, what the books seem to suggest, what the people seem to suggest, what the videos seem to suggest. Only you can imagine what it means to you. What we're talking about here is really thinking for yourself. How to think for yourself, really think for yourself. And what happens then by really thinking for yourself is you get the clear step within. You take the step. And challenges are also access points into the flow. We don't need to run away from challenges. We can embrace challenges, relax into the challenge, and transmute the energy in motion. We can release identification of the illusory beliefs. As I always teach, entrepreneurship can be a spiritual catalyst. Relationships can be a spiritual catalyst. Public speaking can be a spiritual catalyst. Making videos can be a spiritual catalyst. It's okay if emotions are experienced strongly. You develop the ability to transmute those emotions by practicing this. It's okay if overthinking, illusory thinking appears in mind. You cannot identify with that illusory thinking. You don't need to look for approval, validation, or confirmation of your intuitive insight. It may be divergent, and that's okay. It may be convergent, or it could be a combination of divergent and convergent thinking. Intuition provided it to you. And then during the step or prior to taking the step, if any illusory thoughts or emotions are, what's the problem with experiencing emotions? There is no problem. It doesn't mean you're a bad person if emotions are experiencing, let's say, in a particular way. No shame and condemnation. There's no need to resist any kind of resistance even. Allow the emotions to be transmuted. And you take the step. And as Mihai and Csikszentmihalyi talked about, if it was challenging, it's now experienced as skill, where challenge meets skill. And you experience flow there as well, in areas where you might not have experienced flow before. I've taught this to individuals with respect to public speaking, with sales, with social skills. And the results are phenomenal, we could say, because they all of a sudden know what to say, what to do. They've always known what to say, what to do, etc. They just now allow themselves to do what they genuinely desire to do because they have now embraced the challenge. They have relaxed into the flow. They value the sweet spot where challenge meets skill, and skill arises. And then what happens is more skill arises, and there may be more challenges. That's okay. We do this again, again, and again. And through the repetition of being this way, which is your natural way of being, you get to live the life you truly desire. You get to be how you genuinely desire to be. You notice that you're not swayed by the illusions. Illusions appear to disappear to reflect as your ideal way of life, which you can say are symbols of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and the infinitely intelligent way of manifesting these symbols of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, whatever you desire, is received within by doing nothing. In the meditation practice, Anandamide is released by doing nothing. The bliss molecule. This is how we practically live blissfully. Existence, consciousness, bliss. Truth, consciousness, bliss. You are bliss. Practically. You experience it by doing nothing in the meditation. You experience your true nature. And then what happens is the reconciliation of divergent and convergent thinking. No overthinking, no confusion in mind, no contradiction of this versus that. It can be this and that. It may be this way or that way, or a variation or something else. It arises within, it emerges within from the silence. Now, just as that happens by doing nothing, as I mentioned earlier, the intention of this video, it also happens if you appear to do something during the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. And I don't consider one way better than another. It's not like I'm saying, if I experience challenge, I'm going to run away from it. Actually, I realized that the challenge, if it's related to the intuitive step, is an opportunity for me to live the meditation practice and experience the reconciliation happen with the challenge, and thus transmuting the experience. And practically speaking, it transmutes into results. For example, the individuals that I taught this to, they were doing all these procrastination things rather than, let's say, making the 5 sales calls a day. They committed to making 5 sales calls a day. But then they started going and searching on videos and books for answers to the solution that they already know to grow their business. And it might be different, the solution, for another person, but to them, that was the solution. Making the 5 sales calls a day. So the clarity arose to make the 5 sales calls a day while they were doing nothing. That was the intuitive insight. Yet it was experienced as challenging. And so they were missing the opportunity, you could say, to live and do the thing that they genuinely desire to do, which contributes to the success. So what happens? They stopped procrastinating and doing all these other things and focused and embraced the challenge. They focused on the initiatives, shut out everything else, focused on the initiatives, transmuted the emotions, released identification to the illusory beliefs and the overthinking, etc. Repetition, again and again and again. This might be true for you, it might not be. This is a great example. Like, for example, my public speaking workshop from personal experience. Then what happened is they experienced flow while doing the sales calls, during, before, after, flow state, clear thinking, reconciliation, creative insights and perspectives on how to grow their business were received within via the greatest teacher in the universe, which they were seeking for externally. But it was within, the still small voice. And as a result of that, what happened was their businesses grew to success, practically speaking. Again, all by, in moments, doing nothing. And then taking that intuitive step as an opportunity to release the identifications, to the illusory beliefs, not bypassing that step. Because if they bypass that step, they'll just end up doing a whole bunch of things that are unnecessary, and we could say only necessary to bring awareness to these beliefs, which they end up inevitably releasing and doing the thing that they genuinely desire to do. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto suggestion to further encourage. You could say, by doing nothing in meditation, clear thinking and intuition arises to provide the clear step which I naturally take as I remain in my flow on the journey to actualizing my vision, which is the desires from the heart of reality, which is God as symbol of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As I remain as I am, as I actualize the being I am, it appears to be in harmony with all. As I realize that reality is fundamentally in harmony with all as pure bliss, experiencing pure bliss wherever I am, with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive.